my Limitless Pendant.
Tell us. They're listening.
So to give you an update, I put it on at home, unfortunately, and my wife goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, it's my note taker." She's like, "We're at dinner," and I'm like, "Well, it's not like it doesn't even know who you are. It's just taking notes." Anyway, then my dog walks in, starts barking. I have an argument with the dog. Limitless Pendant picks it up. My dog's name is Hank, and it sort of thinks Hank's a coworker. So the notes I checked that night were like, coworker appears to not be following instruction, but also took instruction because didn't respond. So, and allowing people to jump on a Zoom with him for $10,000 an hour to help other AI startups.
Well, Scotty, if you were on Founder-OnlyFans teaching me how to build a technologically powered home that was very high end, I think I would jump on and pay the 10 grand. So maybe there is something in it.
Welcome to Built to Scale, hosted by myself, Scott Wilcox from WBuild, where we craft some of the world's finest homes. And Matt Parrott from BuildPass, he's on a mission to build the world's smartest operating system for construction sites. We're two Aussie founders with global ambitions in business, technology, AI, and robotics. Every week, we're going to distill a broad set of intelligent insights into founder-driven takes that elevate your edge. Listen in to get our Aussie lens on the global playing field for anyone keen to stay ahead. Or in short, for those who refuse to be left behind.
All right, welcome back to Built to Scale. Matt, I love the trees in the background. Have you upgraded the office or are you elsewhere?
I am elsewhere. I forgot to take the traveling mic with me, so I'm over in Austin. Tell you what, the walk here was a bad decision. I could have got an Uber, but I decided to walk and get the legs going. 38 degrees in Austin today, 40 tomorrow. But this will be a temporary thing. Hoping to get a new mic for the travel soon. How are you?
Mate, I'm good. Well, I'm going okay. I've had some drama overnight, and it made me realize that from the start of the show today, we need to go over some, so almost go back to go forward. And what it is when we started the pod, you got in very early with the new tools or the tools that we're going to use to run the pod. You got new tools into my ecosystem, which were Notion, Slack, which I'd previously canned, and Assembly for our social media. Now, I don't have any of them, so you've bolted them on. And I realized it took me like weeks because you're a techie guy that you've probably done that on purpose. And it's come to me as a realization that tool adoption is something that couples and colleagues need to discuss in the workplace prior to getting what would be the equivalent of married. So, I just think well done to you, but it's caused me some drama. I've also somehow managed to pay for all of our Notion subscriptions overnight because they told me I'd run out of free use of Notion. So I had to upgrade. So I said, yes, then I upgraded everyone on our Notion workspace. I'm having dramas.
Well, without turning this into a marriage/podcast host counseling session, look, maybe what it's doing here is, Scotty, is just showing those who get in early, get the worm. So I got the tools in early, and maybe revealing a bit of Boomer Scott as well. I thought you'd be down. I thought you'd be down with the tools, but that's all right. We'll work on it. But it is a good point. It's like, I think in general, tech adoption, you've got to be careful about overcomplicating the process. Maybe we went a bit too overboard with the tools, but we'll sort this out offline, I'm sure.
Thank you, mate. You're sort of cruising around over there in founder mode, and I'm always doing the same here. And I don't know if you saw Nikita Bier, who's released a couple of successful apps over the last couple of years and has been very active on X, sort of talking up how people can build vibe code AI apps and sort of release them and become wealthy and be legends. And I've just seen overnight, I'm thinking maybe you and I are missing out on something here. He's now, after a little bit of success, and this is not a lot of success, a little bit of success, he's now basically doing the equivalent of founder mode OnlyFans and allowing people to jump on a Zoom with him for $10,000 an hour to help other AI startups. And I'm thinking, is this the founder bubble? Have we lost it? Or is this a side hustle you and I are not considering yet, and we need to?
Well, Scotty, if you were on Founder-OnlyFans teaching me how to build a technologically powered home that was very high end, I think I would jump on and pay the 10 grand. So maybe there is something in it. I know that you can make some pretty good margins on the homes you build. So maybe the 10 grand is worth it. And look, on Nikita, he has what I would say a recipe. I think this is the guy, and don't quote me on this, who built an app, sold it to Facebook, and then they did nothing with it. And so he built basically the same app again with a different, kind of vibe to it, and just did the same growth again. It was astronomical growth. So look, we probably haven't got that ability to go on OnlyFans for founders just yet. Maybe we could charge 5 grand. Who knows? But it probably is a bit of founders gone mad.
I might start at $100 and just open up my calendar. It'd be nice to get paid for a meeting, is all I'm saying. Basically, because at the moment, meetings for me are loss leaders. Like there's not money coming in. There's just money going out. I think we spoke last week about the imminent arrival of my Limitless Pendant.
Tell us.
And I think whinged for sort of 20 minutes about Apple, about the bandwidth between our ideas, meetings, thoughts, and transcriptions being our thumbs, and having to move, between tools to basically be able to summarize our day and have that sort of automated flow of, to-do lists and things like that. And Limitless Pendant, I think I sent you a screenshot during the week, basically promised straight after the show to solve it, and it arrived in my letterbox.
They're listening.
So to give you an update, I put it on at home, unfortunately, and my wife goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, it's my note taker." She's like, "We're at dinner," and I'm like, "Well, it's not like, it doesn't even know who you are. It's just taking notes." Anyway, then my dog walks in, starts barking. I have an argument with the dog. Limitless Pendant picks it up. My dog's name is Hank. And it sort of thinks Hank's a coworker. So the notes I checked that night were like, coworker appears to not be following instruction, but also took instruction because didn't respond. So that was night one with Limitless Pendant. You can then ask it questions about your day. It puts in every conversation you have into like a diary format. So time logged, summaried, and then transcribed. Doesn't know, the person. So in terms of, it's not voice recording. So it's doing the things that we were talking about we would hope it would do. And then I exposed a huge flaw on Sunday. I lost it. There's no Find My. The thing is the size of a 20-cent piece or smaller, and it is very hard to keep track of, like worse than AirPods, and there's no Find My on it. It's gone.
And you know who you can blame for that? Mr. Cook, for not just doing this with an Apple product that has Find My. So great that it's arrived. Sorry that you lost it. But what is the out of 10? What's your rating of the Limitless so far in the 3 days that you had it?
It's sort of, it's just so obvious now that our AirPods should be able to do it.
Yep.
That was the summary of it. It was a clunky little tool with not much capital behind it, but at least they're having a go, and I'm sure they could improve it. Like, you get the hardware, they can improve the software back end. But it was showing me like that first, like, really nice moment where you go, oh, I actually can remove, it almost is the assistant and the sort of life partner type thing for transcribe, like on my collar. So I think it did open the eyes to what's possible. But yeah, straight away it just continued our thought from last week that Apple are taking the piss out of us.
They are. And because they're literally listening on every device already. My watch and my AirPods and my phone can already listen to me all of the time and send that to other apps. The fact that we're having to build this clunky tech outside of that and wear some dumb pendant around your neck while you're at dinner with your wife and having an argument with your dog is frustrating. But anyway, that's good to hear the recap. I'm probably going to order one anyway and look like an absolute hypocrite. But Scotty, one thing that I sent to you this week was a post from YC that I thought was really interesting. So YC, being Y Combinator, funded a bunch of startups that have done really, really well. best sort of incubator in the world. YC had a post by Jared, who I've met when we applied to YC, and he was talking about full stack AI. And what he means by that in full stack is not just a company that develops AI solutions for a particular industry, like going and building a AI note taker for the legal industry, but actually going and doing the legal work as well. So we've talked about AI agents before. Can they start to replace some of the work? What if there was a company that would go and actually start a legal firm, or maybe buy a legal firm and make it AI first, and combine the technology that they're building with the actual service provider, making it full stack is the terminology, and how can that apply to different industries? So as I saw that, the reason I sent it to you straight away, I think good content for the pod, was like, this sounds a bit like what Scotty is doing with W and Elysium in the construction industry. So, mate, I would be keen to get your thoughts on full stack AI, and is it something that you were trying to do over at Elysium?
Yeah, so full stack AI seems to be replacing the term vertically integrated. And vertically integrated was the term that, private equity firms would use when, trying to value or plug in a new company they were going to buy to now tell them they were vertically integrated. Or an existing company might make an acquisition to vertically integrate their own business, which means that you're in charge of the whole value chain of what you're offering to consumers. Elysium is absolutely our mission. That is absolutely our mission, to have a full stack AI and vertically integrated AI and robotics company, where we basically design, build, and then our customers live autonomously, where we basically ideally will end up owning the home ecosystem. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is by us. So what we will do is we'll have suppliers and tools. We have, people, companies like NVIDIA, we have Autodesk. Autodesk have got the data of every drawing in the world basically ever done. They're going to do something great with AI in the future. So you're not trying to replace any of these enormous players. You're leveraging them as suppliers. Archistar, who we spoke about last week, is an Australian company. And then we have suppliers like, we're looking at carbon fiber reinforced concrete, which is lighter than concrete, has better results around earthquakes and other things. And you can also do more architecturally impressive things. Another tool that we're going to have is BuildPass, obviously. And then companies like Tesla and Apple are getting involved in the home automation and living space. What we are removing, though, is, I believe, in the future, the traditional subcontractors, maintenance workers, and almost the home hired help. Those are the ones that we're trying to eliminate, to get rid of all that fragmentation and all those extra people in the loop and the experience. And if you could just look at it, the thing that I imagine, and a lot of creativity and innovation lately is coming out of sci-fi. You hear a lot of founders basically saying, where are you getting your inspo from? It's sci-fi. For me, if you were to try and picture what I've just spoken about, I would look at like the Tony Stark house from Iron Man, from Marvel, and just think about what his house looked like and how he interacted with his home and all the different robots he had rolling around. That is kind of what I see the vision as. And I want the consumer experience to be one of where they just speak to our firm. So they have one point of contact. We control the ecosystem from start to finish. And then we have a subscription model where, to keep your home autonomous, you have to maintain it. And ideally, that becomes almost like that SaaS type model from that point.
Incredible. It's very sort of Elon with Tesla. You just go direct to the company, you cut out the dealership, you can buy the car online, you can go see it in a shopping center or wherever it might be. And one day the car is going to drive itself to your home once you've purchased it. And he's also vertically integrated everything. He does the chips. He owns the manufacturing line. He produces a lot of the parts himself. They own the software layer and the operating system. And he's totally vertically integrated that. So I think I agree. Full stack basically is another term for vertically integrated, but in the AI world. And it's more of a techie term, going full stack. If you're talking about a full stack software developer, it's someone who can do the front end, the things that you see, the back end, the logic. Now AI just does it all. But that's really cool. So I think my question to you is, if I buy a house through Elysium, will I be able to talk to the walls?
100%. That's going to be our guarantee. That's the that's the equivalent of the Bunnings. We'll beat it by 5%. You can talk to the walls. Will be the promise. And the walls won't bring up the argument with your dog. The walls will allow that to bypass, and because it'll be done probably with Apple. In all seriousness, I think that that Tesla and Apple will be the two biggest players, is my prediction, in that automated living space. So I think they will be the two. And at the moment, I suppose everyone's buying their own Apple and everyone's buying their own Tesla. I just think once it gets into home integration and sort of multiple robots and built into your walls, I just think that is going to be something that is going to be more like you want to have that. They're going to want to have that distribution. So like Starlink at the moment, it has deals with Telstra. I don't think home automation is going to be direct to consumer. I think they're going to have businesses like Elysium that plug them into their home ecosystem.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, like Tesla, when you get a Tesla battery installed, and I might be wrong here, but I think they send out a registered electrician who's applied to be able to do that training, right? I don't think that they're all on the payroll, everyone's who's going out to install your Tesla battery walls or anything like that.
No, correct. Yeah, no, you need a licensed electrician. Yep. So, I think that potentially is why maybe Apple has been a bit slower getting into the space, because there's a lot of fragmentation and red tape around plugging things into people's homes and building them into the walls. So, that's the future. That's our goal. I'm sure it's not gonna be a smooth ride. But for me, I'm really clear on what that future looks like. So we'll see how long it takes us to get there.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the Apple bet, it's a bold call, but I like it. We have talked about in the past on a previous pod, them making the switch, putting the robotics division into the main product division, which is, you'd argue, a very clear indicator that this is becoming a priority for them. So big call. I like it. And keen to see how Elysium can automate the building of my home when I can afford one.
Absolutely. And you're spending so much time in Austin lately, I assume that's where we might be building it, but we'll leave that for another show. Switching gears, I want to talk about a quick segment that we've got called Thanks for Watching, which is when really famous people who are really intelligent say things we said at minimum 3 weeks later. So we give them 3 weeks where they can say it, but after 3 to 4 weeks, it gets brought up in the Thanks for Watching segment. One of those this week was Brett Weinstein, who has sort of become internet famous, or the dark web famous, over the last 3 or 4 years, but historically, was a biologist who sort of, works in evolution and that kind of stuff. So, really a professor, really intelligent, and he's come up with this blowing thing that we did a month ago, which is basically that LLMs are basically like children, where, at the start, they go into this learning phase. They just taking in the environment through their senses. Then they have supervised learning. They go into fine tuning. After that, they can be released into the wild and be basically productive. As you get more productive, you get some agency. As you deliver with agency, which is probably, I feel like 2023 and 2024 were basic productivity. 2025 for AI sounds like the year of agency. And 2026, potentially, with how fast it's moving, is we're getting closer to the autonomy side of our AI. And the bit that he went to the next level, though, was his thoughts on consciousness, and with a biology background. And for me, another reference for this is AI goes from flight attendant, helping you with some basic tasks in the plane. Then they get into the cockpit, into your co-pilot that Microsoft's been promising for 3 years and hasn't delivered on. And then potentially 2026 is autopilot. And what Brett is then talking about with consciousness, I believe, is no pilot, where the plane goes wherever it wants. And I'm interested to get your thoughts on his take on this. And it's something that is just like pro AI guys we maybe haven't thought about. But he might be signaling something that's a little different.
Firstly, it's a bit disappointing that that Brett took so long to get to the same conclusion that we did many weeks ago as an evolutionary biologist and very famous. So disappointing there, Brett, but thanks for watching. In all seriousness, I think he brings up a great point. We have briefly touched on the idea of consciousness, and it gets a little bit philosophical. But when you ask, what does it mean to be conscious? I think a lot of the things that we go to is things like feeling, and humans are different because we're made of flesh instead of computer chips. So when we talk about consciousness and developing and what that means, I guess what he's saying is because we've built these tools in a different way and they run on chips and they run on models that we've described, they're trained on data. What is to say that just because it's built in that way and it doesn't have flesh, that's any different? And if it is smarter than us and it knows more and it can make autonomous decisions and it can start to act on its own, which we're sort of saying it should do, but also trying to protect it from doing in a way, who is to say that it won't become conscious? And his point here is also, will we know if it has? And that's like kind of a little bit of a scary point. There's a really good podcast called Diary of a CEO. The most recent episode has Brett on alongside some other technologists. One of them is Amjad from Replit, the coding editor, where you can do this. You can use an AI agent to build apps and websites for you. We've talked about some of the other ones. So Amjad is the guy who's very pro AI, and even if it does become essentially autonomous and we get AGI, artificial general intelligence, he's very pro it and thinks he's optimistic about it for the world. And then Brett brings a kind of refreshing point of view, but a somewhat scary point of view that we don't actually know where these systems are going. That he comes at from an evolutionary biology point of view, that we're training these things just like we are training humans. And if they do get to that point of the no pilot mode, like you mentioned, what does that mean for society? Have we let the cat out of the bag? What does it mean for humans? And it's a really good podcast where they discuss that. And I think the host does a really good job of delving into it. So look, it's fascinating. It's maybe a little bit scary. And while we're sitting here all pro AI and what it means for our businesses, it's good that there are some people thinking about the broader impacts on the economy and the world in general. And I think it's something we do need to be conscious of. And as we look at displacement of jobs, but also, the end of the world, as you would see in some cyber films. So interesting, a little bit scary, a bit of a refreshing take from our usual pro AI. Let's just get it done.
Yeah. And I think let them do that. I just think like builders need to be builders. And there's governments, philosophers, and other think tanks that'll sort of put the brackets around the consciousness conversation. So I agree. It's nice to hear. It's refreshing. And I think that, like we spoke last week, that asking Sam Altman every time you get to talk to him, what are the dangers of AI, is just like, what were the dangers of trains? What did we say to Thomas Edison when the light bulb got created? What if you just put your hand on it forever and it burned you? So I think there's a role for that, and there's a role for what we're doing. But yeah, it was a really good take.
Yeah, and the reality is that because this technology is there and people are working on it, if you're not working on it, you're essentially getting left behind. So it's kind of like you could sit here and go, I think AI is scary. I don't think it's good for the world. I'm going to therefore not do anything about it, or I'm going to protest against it. But realistically, the cat's out of the bag. It's a game theory thing. And it just because we're not all going to agree as a globe that we shouldn't work on AI, because the bad actors will, and then they'll get an advantage. So we all need to work on it now. That's just like the game theory of it. And so if you are a business owner or an employee, if you're not using it, you are getting left behind. That's the part of the premise of this show for people who want to not get left behind. And yeah, let's let the doomers like Brent talk about this. We'll bring it up in our pod, and then we'll move on to all the benefits of AI.
Excellent. Well, mate, let's get into the AI news, which is our real hitting zone here. So one of the biggest things I saw this week, Sam Altman, as always, we have the OpenAI segment, basically. Big appointment, and I'm going to butcher this name, but it could be Fidji Simos or Simos, She's been appointed. She's got a wildly successful career across big companies over the last 20 years of creating revenue streams out of advertising and basically commercializing a great product that everyone's used to having for free and never seeing ads. And she's got a great track record. So that basically started at eBay, plugged advertising and commercialization of that platform, and made it wildly successful and valuable. She's then went to Meta on an amazing run from 2011 to 2019, did the same thing. And then more recently has been at Instacart, which I haven't used as a product, but once again, some of the valuations I've seen are enormous. Now, Sam's obviously plugged her in here to commercialize their platform. Now, what it means, I think, is that we're going to see ads and we're going to see an application layer similar to that, like we spoke about App Store with Apple. And I think we spoke about their mission wanting to be the Apple of AI. I think this is a big appointment a week later to go in that direction and for him to offload that experience to her so he can keep focusing on the product. Where he's like, you go make us some money, I'm going to focus on the product. And I thought that was a really big piece of news.
Totally. It's kind of like the Mark Zuckerberg appointing Sheryl-Sandberg back in the day. He said, I'm the product guy. I'm the nerdy dude who's going to keep building the best products, and you're going to figure out how to commercialize this. So there's probably an element of that play. I think the interesting thing is ChatGPT and the OpenAI ecosystem has still astronomical growth. I've just looked it up now. So they have 122 million daily active users. That's people who are logging on and using it every day. And when you go to weekly active users, so at least once a week, it's up to 800 million now. That is almost, that's almost the economy of the amount of people in China all using it. So it's, and when you consider how many people there are on the globe, I think we're 8 billion now. So we're almost like an eighth of the whole globe using ChatGPT on a weekly basis, which is just crazy for a company that's only a few years old. So you think about that level of usage, you only have to monetize a sliver of it to make that a massive revenue stream. They've already got a lot of revenue through subscriptions, but this is that next layer. And it kind of is the play for a consumer brand like a Facebook, someone who wants to own the consumer experience of AI end to end. They're also saying, we're going to add a layer of monetization at every step. What does that mean? Is it adds in ChatGPT? I'm sure there's going to be all these new smart ways of monetizing the application layer. So it will be really interesting to see what someone like, again, don't know how to say it, Fidji Simo is going to do. And yeah, is this the Sheryl-Sandberg appointment of OpenAI?
Yeah, my first thought went to, and based on those numbers that you've spoken about there, my first thought went to Google. What does this mean for Google and Apple, I suppose? But if you have a look at the numbers as well, the other one that's exponentially rising is the replacement of search, Google search, with ChatGPT chat. So how often, or ChatGPT search, how often are people now going that would have previously gone to Google going to chat? Now, month on month, that is exponentially growing. They're taking more because Google had 99% of search and it's just been eaten away slowly. Obviously, everyone's still using Google. But if you look at it as a trajectory, it's going right in the wrong direction. And I think Google are not great marketers. Like, Google is just the best product and then ecosystem ever invented, and business. Google, product, ecosystem, business ever invented, I believe. However, I wouldn't say their marketing was ever that good. It was just the products are so good and the acquisitions.
They haven't had to, right?
Yeah. It's just a perfect business. And then now they've messed up Gemini. Gemini is performing 2.5 is performing probably the best model across a lot of different dimensions. And barely anyone is using it. And I think, they called it Bard when they first released it. And the whole thing's been a train wreck in terms of marketing and message. And I sort of made me think that it should just be Google. Like, we're all born into this world. My kids already know the words YouTube and Google by the age of 3 or 5. They don't know the word ChatGPT. And I don't think they should ever have to learn the word Gemini. Google's a part of the dictionary, their vocabulary. It's a verb. And I just think they need to lean into that. ChatGPT sucks as a name, and they've still already got 800 million users. And I just think that Google need to find a way for Gemini to be the back end, like Llama, where you can go and grab a model and do cool things for builders. But it just needs to be Google. They need to bring back all this chat, these chat searches and things like that, and just it needs to be Google. And I think they need a complete refresh of the brand where they just say, hey, it's all here. Don't worry about going to ChatGPT. Don't download Gemini. It's Google.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a really good point. And Google's smart. So we've got to ask the question, why? Why haven't they done exactly what you described? And I think the reason is they have such a powerful ads business that they're worried to lose the revenue from. So when you go to Google and you search for something, what they want to do is they want to send you past a few sponsored ads and get you to click on them. That's how the ad gets paid, and that's how they get their revenue, right? People pay for that so that they can get clicks. And so that's a massive part of their revenue. I think it makes up 50 or 60% of Google's total revenue through all the businesses they have. Alphabet, I mean, the parent company of Google. So if that's the reason that's holding them back, I think they need to make a decision here on, do we rip the Band-Aid off on risking half of the revenue of our whole business to make sure that we continue to own this layer? Because if they don't, they're probably going to lose it anyway. The reality is, now when you want to find out some information, it's just a better experience to ask an LLM than it is to go search through, 5 different websites. They've tried to solve this a little bit with the AI summary you get at the top, but that might be okay for a quick piece of information. You Google it, it gives you a quick AI summary, but it's never going to give you the richness of the answer that something like ChatGPT or Gemini would give you. So realistically, that whole interface is basically dead. I no longer, if I want a recipe to something, I don't want to go on someone's silly looking website that's got 400 ads on it and I have to press the jump to recipe button to find it. That's just dead. That is not going to be there anymore. So we know that the new interface for this is asking an LLM, because you can ask it in any way you like. You can talk to it and it gives you the answers with sources now. That's just the new mode. And so Google has dipped their sort of feet into this. I turned on Google the other day and it asked me if I wanted to use the chat mode instead, but then it's been turned off. It didn't work very well. They just need to decide, are we going all in on this? And I think the answer is they need to. And so to your point, why not? Why not just rebrand Google or rebrand Gemini as Google, turn it into an LLM, and then you can turn the old browsing mode on if you want. They need to rip the Band-Aid off because otherwise they're getting crushed. And yeah, you're right. ChatGPT is... people are going to it and they almost don't feel like they need to go into anywhere else. A lot of retail consumers do not have Claude and Gemini on their phone and go between them and between Grok like we do as nerds. Most people are just downloading ChatGPT and that's what they're going to. So if Google doesn't act on this now, I think they're pretty screwed. And I love the idea of just rebranding it all so that we don't have to have this separate Gemini app that not many people really know about.
It'd be the equivalent of Kodak having the best digital camera, but wanting to rebrand the name and confuse everyone, and then just sticking to that, and then having what happened to Kodak happen. Do you know what I mean? Like Kodak should still be the best camera on the planet. They had everyone on the planet using their cameras, and they were worried about cannibalizing their own profits and sticking to an old medium. And we saw what happened to them. And Google's in the opposite position where they have the best digital camera. They're just trying to call it something else and they're just clunky and they don't know how to market. So yeah, that feels like that moment for them right now.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the perfect example. Other news, Sequoia, the AI $1 trillion opportunity. What is this? What are they talking about? And who is Sequoia? It might be worthwhile explaining to jump in, Scotty, who Sequoia is as well.
Yeah, so Sequoia are an enormous, would you call them venture capital, or are they at another stage? Venture capital firm?
Yep, venture capital, but they're also like what we would call a crossover firm in that they invest in the public markets as well. I believe we probably need to fact check that, but yeah, essentially a massive VC.
If we were to list their investments, they are very well known. They're rock stars. they're having their sort of annual get together with, basically probably all the founders and the businesses they represent. And they've given recently their talk on just what the next 12 months look like. They had Jensen Huang there. So, that's to give you an example of the heavy hitters that operate in that space. What I really found interesting was one of the partners spoke about TAM of AI, which is the total addressable market. So basically, what is the market size of any one field? And when a venture capital firm or a private equity firm is looking to acquire a business, they want to know, what are you doing? Why will it work now? And how big is the total market that you're trying to get your slither of? And then what is your chance of building a moat in that market and having a substantial impact? What's quite interesting is they spoke about the transition when the internet started. And when the internet started in the, call it the early 2000s or late 90s, we're talking about potentially hundreds of millions of dollars of total addressable market in the internet space at the time when you were trying to get your share, like eBay or something similar, or PayPal. And then we went through the next stage, sort of through the 2010s, which was cloud. Now, the cloud environment when it started was hundreds of millions of dollars from day one, as opposed to the total addressable market. And then the cloud environment has now grown into over $1 trillion market. What they're saying now is, with the base of the internet, then cloud, the AI total addressable market is exponentially bigger than both of those combined. So they're saying trillions from day one, and then exponential growth from there. Now, these numbers, they're actually quite hard to get your head around. Tens of trillions of dollars, the whole global economy. They're basically saying the whole global economy is up for grabs. And they're saying because you're not just replacing software, you're replacing software, services, and labor now with agentic AI and then autonomous AI. So it was just a bit of a moment for me where I was like, oh my God, like it seemed like a speech that if you had heard it 10 years ago about cloud, or 20 years ago about the internet, whoever didn't listen to it would just be going about their day, not knowing everything. But to me, it really locked me in on, oh my God, if this isn't my number one focus, I'm being left behind.
Absolutely. You're right. 10 years ago, you'd say this is crazy. It's VCs sensationalizing things, but because of how fast this has arrived and what it unlocks and adding that new layer, it does have an exponential effect. It literally, 10x's or 100x's the traditional TAM, total addressable market, that you would have for these types of businesses. And it goes back to what we were talking before at the start of the show with the concept of full stack AI. It's a very similar thing. It's saying we can deliver across all of these different verticals, and in these different layers of the verticals, being software, labor, services, and combine them together. So I do wonder if we're going to see sort of a new form of private equity play, private equity being funds that will typically buy businesses up, buy multiple businesses. And, one of the strategies in private equity is to buy a business at a certain revenue multiple, take a bunch of cost out of the business, make it more profitable, grow it, and then sell it off. Not all private equity businesses do just that, but I do wonder if there's a strategy here to look at a bunch of these traditional, either service-based or field-based companies that are out there that potentially have been quite profitable. The owners want an exit event. The kids don't want to take over the business because the kids would prefer be TikTok stars or YouTubers. And is there an opportunity to go and buy up these types of businesses in a private equity style play and make them more efficient with AI to win more work, to do things more efficiently, and to actually do that in a way that allows you to have a private equity style firm, but implementing AI at the same time? It's a similar sort of concept. And I think they're right that this is literally $1 trillion opportunity, and it's the biggest opportunity that we've ever seen. So very fascinating stuff.
Yeah, the old private equity terms used to be, grab these mum and dad businesses and systemize them, make them a bit leaner, and then sell them for more. I think the almost the dystopian version of this is grab the mum and dad business, automate it.
Yeah.
and then sell it. Automate it, scale it, and then sell it. And hopefully, I think what that means as well, and what we've done here, is we're looking at having all of our staff as equity partners, business owners, or shadow equity owners, so that we're then all aligned on the efficiency and the leveraging AI, so no one gets left behind in the business, which then changes your framework as an employer to, do I want to share the eventual income of this business with this person? And if the answer is no, should they be in the business? And I think then that's like a self-fulfilling feedback loop of excellence. And it then aligns everyone in the one strain, which I think Jensen's done really similar to NVIDIA. I think like almost every employee there is, has got share options. And that's when he talks about having 30,000 people pulling in the same direction. I just think that once you're then aligned, if you end up selling or getting bought out, everyone benefits. So if something gets automated, you also win, which then has you aligned in the goal of automation.
Yeah, I really like that idea of buy-in for the culture of excellence, but it's also a way of aligning people as well. Everyone is aligned around the same goal. And you're right, people don't get scared about AI and efficiency. It's like, well, if I can do less of that manual job that I was doing in a really inefficient way, and I can do it in a more efficient way. One thing that we've often talked about is if people make themselves more efficient, they're not necessarily doing themselves out of a job. In most cases, they're making themselves more valuable because they're creating the value for the business. And I think by making people equity partners in the business they're in, it only furthers that level of alignment. So I really like that idea. It'll be interesting to see if there's any big movers in this space. It's probably already happening and we just don't know it. But it's pretty cool to see the amount of opportunity that is out there by combining tech with services in traditional businesses and seeing what that could look like.
Yep. Now, mate, I'd like to move on to a segment. Well, it's interesting. I thought it was sort of going down the tool of the week path. However, I actually don't know what it means. So it can't be tool of the week. So it's almost our version of Science Quarter. Because I've seen so much on MCP, which you'll get into the detail here. So don't forgive me for just sort of trying to give this a topic a heading. But in regards to MCP, agent-to-agent protocols, Zapier integrations, and it's all over my head. But I seem like it's got that feeling of it, like if I just understood it better, I would know what's coming. And I think you've probably got the technology expertise to guide us through it. So it might be a bit of a deep dive, but can you help us understand what is MCP? What's it mean? And what's it mean for the future of our workflows and how we operate?
For sure. Okay. You're going to have to give me a few minutes and I'm going to attempt to take this from over your head and over some people's who are listening's head and into the head. So there's two things we need to talk about here. One is MCP and what that is. And then there's a tool called Zapier and that will lead us to our piece of news. So MCP is the Model Context Protocol. When we talk about protocols, that is a way for two things to communicate together. You and I talking right now, we are talking via the protocol of voice and English. We both have a common understanding of how we need to talk to each other. Because if I was talking to you in Chinese and you were talking to me in gibberish, we just wouldn't be able to communicate. It wouldn't work. Maybe that's what it sounds like to the listeners sometimes. But so a protocol is a way of two things talking together. We have had protocols since the dawn of technology. Well, pre-technology as well, but within a tech version, when you type into your internet browser, HTTP, that stands for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Don't worry about all of that, but just think about the protocol part. That is the internet's way of saying we now have a way from one computer talking to another computer via the internet. So that's another protocol that's existed for a long time. Then we moved into the world of having things called APIs, an application programming interface. And instead of that just one computer talking to each other, we started saying, well, maybe the pieces of software that we're running on our computers can start talking together. So we talked about tools at the start of this podcast, and it might be a source of tension and breakup for us, but we can get back to that. The Notion, which is one tool that we're using to plan our content, can talk to Slack, which is our tool that we're using to communicate. And they communicate via an API. There's an application programming interface, they call it. Again, don't worry about the terminology there, but it's two pieces of software knowing how to talk to each other and how to integrate. So that's sort of the most recent set that we have had up until recently. Then we've got MCP. So that is the model context protocol. And it's saying, how can two AI models talk to each other? They could have done it through an API, and it's a similar concept, but we need to define the protocol for the new things that we have now. We've got a prompt, we've got all of the context, and it's just a fancy way of saying we have a new way of these AI models talking together. And it doesn't sound like much when you just look at the protocol in itself. It's not much. It's just like a way of structuring the data, essentially. But the things that it unlocks is it means that now when you have an AI tool like a ChatGPT, it can then go and talk to anyone's piece of software. So the build pass software, we could create what we would call our own MCP server, and that would be us implementing this protocol for ChatGPT to go and connect with BuildPass and get the information out of it. So we're seeing this pop up everywhere. So that is not news, I guess. It's been used for a few months, but it hasn't gone anywhere. The most recent thing that has happened that has become a real unlock to just the standard everyday person is there's this tool called Zapier or Zapier, depending on who you ask. And what Zapier allows you to do is to actually connect existing tools together via API. And it's this concept, some people call it if this, then that. So if this happens, then this should happen. And it might be when I receive a message in Slack from Scott telling me that we use too many tools, I can then go trigger a notification in Notion to see it in there, and I can respond to him there just to annoy him. That is what Zapier allows you to do. And you can connect all of these different tools together in a drag and drop way. There's no coding involved. They have released their own MCP server such that your LLM can now go talk to Zapier. You can define all of your workflows in there, and the LLM can actually interface with that. So it's almost like getting access to 8,000 tools at once through one MCP. And essentially, with ChatGPT being able to talk to Zapier now, you can use natural language to go and do all of these fancy integrations, and it's a massive unlock. So I hope that didn't go too deep. We can cut it out if we think it's too boring. But have I managed to get some of that concept out of the head into it?
100%. I mean, you're now just talking to me like a human. You're making it for me like it's just language, right? Do you understand each other? And now can you work together? That's how I'm taking that now. Like between myself and my colleagues. Because my colleagues are separate entities in themselves, and we have English where I can give them an instruction and ask them to do it, and they can give me some feedback on how I presented that instruction, and it's a two-way street. And so how big of a deal is this? If Zapier is, because Zapier is the platform for basically all the APIs, right? So for all the previous connective tissue between all these apps. They've then gone, so everyone else is busy trying to create little MCPs individually, but Zapier was the platform where people would go to connect up different pieces of software. Is that right? To start the conversation.
Exactly. It's rather than getting your ChatGPT to go talk to 10 different MCPs, they're basically saying, hey guys, we've kind of already done this. So why don't you just talk to our MCP server? You can then in a graphical way see how all of these tools are connected together and just get your AI model to talk to our MCP server, and that's all you need. So I think it's really smart by them. It's locking people into their ecosystem. I think there's probably been a bunch of talk on like, oh, with MCP, do you even need a Zapier now? And this is kind of their response saying, well, our tool is still really relevant. It's great to use. Just use our MCP server to get your model to talk to it. So I think it's really smart. I saw quite a funny post on this from Product Hunt on X. It's got a picture of the AI models talking to Zapier's MCP server, and it just says the intern's now running the office. Good luck. And I find that quite funny because it's something that we have talked about before, that if you can harness the power of these AI tools, whether it's knowing about MCP or how to integrate Zapier into the business, all of a sudden the intern might be doing the work of like 5 people like they're just like, hey, you know how you had all these processes and people who were doing stuff? I've actually just hooked up Zapier, and you can now, I've automated it all with this free tool that I found on the internet. And it's just very symbolic, I'd say, of this new era that we're walking into. And it only reinforces what we've been trying to drill into everybody, is that you will be left behind if you're not exploring these tools. You're not leveling yourself up with these tools and understanding them, because if you don't, someone else who's using them will come in and they'll become the more valuable person. So again, back to the saying, AI is not replacing you. The person who knows how to use AI is.
Yeah, and then for those waiting for, to not have 100 tools, Google Agent Space, which is there's been some news around lately, that seems to be the first player getting close to, because they've got Gmail and Google Meet and all of your other things you use in Google Drive. They're probably looking to add that layer, and just keep it in the Google ecosystem and not require all the different things like Zapier. But like we've said with Google and Microsoft, they often release a poor version of a product. And then, you have to stay in their ecosystem. But if you can branch out of just one ecosystem of Microsoft or Google, you can get all these better experiences and all these other tools. And then if you want true agentic behavior, it sounds like this is the key. That's the way I'm seeing it, is that this MCP, connecting the models to your tools, that's where the agentic AI is going to come from.
Yeah. And honestly, the everyday person doesn't need to use MCP themselves, know what the protocol is. Just like when we go on and use the internet, no one knows what HTTP actually means other than the nerds like me. You don't need to know that. It's just, we're trying to explain why this is important, but it will just happen behind the scenes as well. You will just be able to use ChatGPT to plug into something else that will happen behind the scenes. So it really depends on how deep you want to go in. Do you want to start building apps with these things? Do you want to be the person that's going to be able to wire all this stuff together? Do you want to use just the other tools that allow you to do that, like a Zapier? Or do you want to just use the thing, the suites, like the Google suite, that will start to do this stuff? And so it really depends at what level you want to play there. But I think that the motto really is this is happening and you should be across it somewhat. Otherwise, you will get left behind.
Awesome, mate. You've absolutely elevated me there and my intelligence mid-show. So I really appreciate that. So hopefully others got some value out of that as well. To lighten it up now, I see you over there, and I don't know if you see me, without your glasses on. So I'm not sure if I'm just a blurry mess at the moment.
I literally can't see you.
But the reason I bring it, bring it up is because Palmer Luckey, who is quite well known in the States, he sold his VR company to Meta, who then pumped billions of dollars into the virtual reality space and then basically canned it. After 5 years of not making a success of it, and all the key investors getting angry at Mark Zuckerberg. But he recently did a TED talk because he's got his new defense robotics company. And at TED, they don't let you have, and I'm sure you'll do a TED talk one day, but they don't let you have teleprompters. So they want you to remember your talk in your head so that you present to the audience. He seems to have hacked the system with these new, really slick-looking glasses, sight glasses, where no one picked up on it. But these glasses from Even Realities, they're called the G1. He sort of confessed on a podcast this week he was wearing them, where his notes of his talk were scrolling through his glasses, his clear glasses. So no big Mark Zuckerberg monster. Mark's been doing the full court press lately with the metas, and you can just see they got the big cameras and stuff like that. But this is a really refined product. It's quite expensive. I think it's close to $1,000 Australian, and it's obviously a prescription. But he had his whole talk scrolling down his eyes as he was talking. No one knew. He just sounded like, he was really well prepared. And I had a look into the product, and it's also, it's got navigation, it's got transcribing, like we were talking about Apple, like with the transcription and the memory, and they're probably going to build in some back-end models. But very cool product. And I was thinking, if you're not going to wear the glasses, maybe I'll start wearing glasses. So it might bring me. We might be swapping.
Yeah, we'll know if you rock up looking a little bit nerdier next week that you've invested in the G1s, and hopefully the G1s have a Find My on them, unlike the Limitless Pendant, so we can actually find them. But it's really fascinating, the concept of like augmenting ourselves. We augment ourselves with our Apple Watch, with our Aura ring, or whatever we're wearing. And glasses is an interesting concept. I think if they can make it work, it's really smart. And I was actually thinking about getting laser to fix my eyes, because I do always lose my glasses. But maybe with something like this is actually a level up. Unless we take that one step further, going back to last week's app with Elon and the Neuralink, maybe soon we won't actually need to put anything in front of our eyes. There can just be a computer chip that taps into the nerve that sends the signals that our eyes would have been receiving, and we can see it anyway. That would be freaking cool and a little bit scary. But until we're there, I'm not about to put a computer chip in the back of my head anytime soon. I will be having a look at these glasses though. Maybe I'll invest in this instead of the laser.
I think, so in saying that, honestly, I think Elon's long play is no wearables. I think, like you said, he's getting rid of the bandwidth. So all these wearables are like little trinkets on the way to no wearables. I think, but we won't go that meta, pardon the pun, just yet. But in the meantime, I think it's a cool little device. Yeah, if you see me wearing them next week, talking model context protocols, you will officially know that I've got the notes just rolling down my eyes. Now, speaking of our man Elon, let's get into the robot rundown, where the rubber meets the road in technology. And Boring Company. It's funny to think that we're 10 shows in, we spoke about him every show, and we haven't spoke about the Boring Company. Like,
let's talk about
he's just got it's just another multi-billion-dollar business, but it doesn't even make the top 10.
Yep.
What's going on? But something that came out last night, actually really fresh. Basically their boring machines are now autonomous. They've released a video where the only person involved was a videographer, just to prove it was autonomous. And Elon has spoken recently about the tunnels they're building in Las Vegas and Texas at the moment. He is getting the cost down to $10 million US per kilometer. And he was comparing it to the train wreck, pardon the pun, of the Paris train line and the train wreck of the New York subway that's recently been upgraded. And we can compare it to the train wreck of the Melbourne-Metro tunnel, which has costed $1 billion US per kilometer. It is due to open, Jacinta Allen is telling us, in 2025. We are in 2025, so lovely loose term by the government. But we've just paid $1 billion US per kilometer. Elon can do it for 10, which is 1% of the costs that we've just outlaid.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's honest, like, it's awesome. It's also so frustrating that we sit here with a government that is so incompetent. But without getting into that, I think, well, actually, you know what? I am going to get into that. Why don't we have freaking Starlink instead of the new NBN rollout? I can't remember what they did, but they're doubling down on a technology that was very costly and barely works when we could just get Starlink. Now, I get that there's some people who are anti-Elon and is it too much power in one man's hands? Whatever. Give us the best tech. Give it to us cheaper. Save our tax dollars. And this is the perfect example of, one, the current incompetence of our government, but two, the shining lights in what can be done with technology. And yeah, I think, like, if we go full circle here, back to what we talked about at the start of the show with kind of full stack, combining AI and technology with the real world is really exciting, because realistically, we have a lot of infrastructure that we want to build. We have a lot of traffic on the roads. We have train lines. We have not enough homes for people to live in, and it's too expensive. And there doesn't look like there's any good signs at the moment of us being able to do that without technology. So I think this is inspiring, the fact that we can do things at 1% the cost. Hopefully that saves our tax dollars. Hopefully we can implement some version of this in the future, and maybe you can drive that future forward for us, Scotty. But it's great to see Elon just with, again, one of his businesses doing really well. And I must say, maybe we talk about Elon too much, Scotty, because I had a look at our Apple podcast rating. We had 1 rating and it was a 1 star. And so...
Are you thinking that was from like some angry lefty?
Yep. So... if you're an angry lefty listening and you don't like Elon, please just don't listen, don't rate it 1 star. But if you are listening, if you've got this far, I know everyone does this, but there's a reason they do it. We want to get this podcast out. Please give us more than 1 star, 2, 3, maybe 5. And also the call out to subscribe so we can actually get this out to a few people. But I've sort of just I've started to close out there, Scotty. Did you have anything else on the robot rundown, or do you want to call out any angry lefties?
No, I just think, look, we've got all right to appease the lefties. Here we go. So love Jacinta Allen. What she could do to be revolutionary here is go, I know I've been pumping up the Southern Rail Loop in Melbourne, and we're getting a little bit closed in on Melbourne here, but it's going to cost $100 billion. And I've got the feedback that we're potentially going broke and you might not want to do it. So what I've done is I've parked politics. I've spoken to the Boring Company, and we're going to do it for $1 billion. And we're going to connect the south of Melbourne to the north of Melbourne using technology. We get the result for 1% of the cost. Vote me in next time. Now, if she does that, I will grab the Labor flag running down Collins Street celebrating her name. We will get 5-star reviews from all the Adam Bant supporters, and we all come together. Technology is going to bring us all together. We're going to get good reviews. Melbourne gets a tunnel. We all can pay less tax, and how's that for an end?
I love it. I'm not going to add anything to that. Perfect.
Okay, mate. Well, you enjoy Austin, and we'll catch up next time.
I will. Thanks, Scotty. See ya.